Jenna had always been adventurous, never the one to shy away from a dare or a thrill. So when her friends challenged her to drive alone on the desolate, eerie stretch of highway known as Whispering Hollow Road, she accepted without hesitation. It was a moonless night, and the only light came from the dim glow of her car's headlights, which seemed to slice through the darkness like a fragile lifeline. The dense woods on either side of the road loomed like silent sentinels, their branches reaching out to claw at the car as she sped down the narrow, winding path. The wind whispered through the trees, creating eerie, ghostly sounds that sent shivers down Jenna's spine. As she drove deeper into the heart of Whispering Hollow Road, Jenna's unease grew. The road twisted and turned, seemingly endless, with no signs of civilization in sight. She couldn't help but wonder why this place was so infamous among the locals. The stories she had heard were full of ominous warnings, tales of travelers who had ventured onto this road and had never returned. Suddenly, the radio crackled to life. It had been silent the entire journey, but now it emitted a distorted voice. Jenna's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to make sense of the eerie message. The voice hissed, almost inaudible, but distinct enough to send a chill down her spine. Her grip on the steering wheel tightened, and she pressed her foot harder on the accelerator. She was determined to prove that she wasn't afraid of a few ghost stories. The road seemed to stretch on forever, and Jenna's nerves were on edge. Shadows danced at the edge of her vision, and strange shapes darted across the road in front of her. She couldn't tell if they were real or figments of her imagination. As Jenna rounded a particularly sharp curve, her headlights illuminated something that made her blood run cold. A pale, ghostly figure standing in the middle of the road. It was a young girl, her long, wet hair clinging to her face. The girl stared at Jenna with hollow, empty eyes, and Jenna could feel a profound sense of dread washing over her. She had heard stories of a ghostly hitchhiker who haunted this road, a tragic spirit seeking a ride to her final destination. Summoning every ounce of courage, Jenna spoke.
"Are you okay?"
Jenna quickly realized that coming here was a huge mistake. She wanted to get out of here as fast as possible. Suddenly, the radio started crackling again. I think I've just one more mile to go. Then it'll be all over. I'll never have to come back here again. Stupid radio. Why is it not turning off? Like many others who took a wrong turn and got lost on Whispering Hollow Road, Jenna sadly never returned back, and no one will ever know what happened to her.
It was a rainy night, and I had just finished my shift at a local family diner. It was the so-called hotspot of my town where everyone from around would often stop by for a coffee or a bite to eat. This happened in the late fall of New Jersey. I was in high school at the time and worked this job to save up for a car. We'll call the diner the Shack. The Shack was about a 40-minute drive from my apartment where I lived with my mom. I obviously didn't own a car, so that meant I would be constantly taking the bus to and from work. Well, on this night, I was getting ready to close so I could make it to the bus when a coworker of mine had accidentally dropped some dishes on the floor. Being the kind-hearted soul I was, I offered to help her clean up, which maybe took about a few minutes max. After that, we clocked out and I walked over to the bus stop. But after checking the bus tracker on my phone, I came to the realization that I was 10 minutes too late. That was the last bus transit in the area, so that meant I had no way of getting home. This was before Uber and Lyft were a thing, and I didn't have the number for my coworkers, so I couldn't ask for help. And my mother was the type of person who made me take accountability for my mistakes. So if I were to ask her to come get me, she'd decline and scold me about how I should have planned accordingly. At that point, I decided that I'd walk home, which would take a little over 2 hours. Now, the diner I worked at was located in the suburbs of town. There's a single road with woods on both sides of it, and the diner was sort of alongside the road. The nearest buildings were quite a ways away, so the location was sort of rural, if that makes sense. So there I am, walking along the sidewalk with my earbuds in, listening to my music for about 20 minutes when my iPod died. Because I'm the idiot who constantly forgets to charge it and leaves her cable at home. With nothing to do, I get out my phone and played some iOS games while watching ahead of me. Then, about 3 minutes later, I see lights slowly illuminate from behind me and the sound of an engine. I turn around and there's a car approaching and stops right next to me. The driver puts their window down and I see a man I had never seen before ask if I were okay. I told him that I was, and that I was just walking home. He acknowledges me and asks, "I can give you a ride if you want. I'm going in that direction anyway, so it won't be a problem." Now let me give you a description on this dude. He appeared to be around my age, decent looking, and wore a Target uniform. I know this because my sister used to work at Target and would always come home wearing the same uniform. I was hesitant at first, but it was damn near freezing out and getting a ride seemed like the only option. At that point, I accepted the ride and got into the front seat of his car. I know, I'm an idiot. He introduced himself as David and told me he was actually heading home himself. I sort of grew on him and told him my situation about missing the bus and how nobody would come to get me. He then starts to make this joke about how he was lucky he found me, which I'll admit made me a little uncomfortable. Although I didn't tell him that as I didn't want to sound rude. I give him the basic directions of the area my apartment was in, and he starts heading towards there. Not much was said for most of the car ride though. Every time I'd start up a conversation with him, he'd give me a dry response or short replies. I figured he wasn't the social type, so I just sort of sat back and ended up falling asleep. As I said, it was a 40-minute drive, and I was exhausted from work. I wake up about maybe 20 minutes later and look out the window to see that we were in a completely different area. We were on this paved dirt road in the woods that I could only assume was maybe in the area of my work.
David? We're going the wrong way.
Yeah, I know. I just have to do something really quick. Right then, I took notice that his demeanor completely shifted, which made my heart race. He went from this casual, normal guy to just sketchy. Just then, another car approaches us, nose to nose, and I see two people get out. He tells me to wait inside the car while he, quote, deals with this and to not get out. I see two men, along with David, go up to each other and begin talking while occasionally glancing over at me. For whatever reason, I started to get this strange feeling that something was off. Something in my gut told me I wasn't safe and that I needed to get out of there ASAP. I undo my seatbelt and open the door slightly when I hear this blood-curdling scream that echoed across the area. The scream surely came from inside that other car, and that's when I booked it out of there. I hear one of the men yell, "Hey," followed by 2 gunshots that thankfully missed me. As horrified as I was, I didn't care anymore. I only focused on what was in front of me, praying to God I didn't trip. All the while, I could hear footsteps approaching fast from behind while I'm navigating through the woods. Eventually, I come across a highway with some truck haulers passing through and flag them down. Thankfully, one of them stops, and after explaining myself, he takes me to the nearest police station. From there, I called my mom, frantically telling her to please pick me up. She of course did, and apologized profusely for not picking me up to begin with. I cried for hours on and quit my job the next day. The police had looked into what had happened and had managed to find the dirt road, but no signs of the cars. They also contacted all the targets in the area, asking if anyone named David worked there. Sure enough, there was no record of any David working there. This meant that whoever's car I got into that night was posing as a fake Target employee as a way to, I guess, make themselves trustworthy. As for the scream I heard, that was never revealed. I'm convinced that whatever I came across that night was some sort of trafficking ring, and that I was their next victim. Lots of crime and shady stuff happen around the area I live in, but I just haven't seen it until now. A year later, I moved out of state for college, and I'm having the time of my life in a much safer environment.